EA has made some pretty terrible games, but these are the worst of the worst. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 worst EA games. Before we begin, we publish new videos every day, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at some of the most terrible games published and or developed by Electronic Arts.
Commander Versio. He must be important.
Number 10, Command & Conquer 4, Tiberian Twilight.
Enemy units sighted.
This was the game that killed the Command & Conquer franchise. Command & Conquer 4 Tiberian Twilight has gone down as one of the most downvoted games on Steam. Everything about the game is mediocre, from the story to the gameplay to the graphics. Adding to the dreadful quality is the DRM policy, which demanded players maintain a constant online connection. So, if you lost your internet connection, all of your progress was lost. Guess killing franchises wasn't enough. They just had to go for the save files. Thanks, EA.
And we will ascend together!
Number 9, Army of Two, The Devil's Cartel. The Army of Two franchise was a welcoming experience, up until EA shelled out The Devil's Cartel. The game suffered criticism for a lot of things. The mechanics are something to gripe about, the AI is stupid, and the entire experience is forgettable. Although, the biggest misstep here was that the game failed to include many of the key features that made its predecessors fun. The Devil's Cartel stripped away the competitive multiplayer mode in favor of a bare-bones co-op experience that focused on fast and repetitive gameplay. Furthermore, Mexico's level design is bland and lifeless, and the perfectly mediocre story will have you and a friend murdering countless drug dealers. Number 8, Bionicle The Game. For a story as in-depth and engaging as LEGO's Bionicle series was, it's a wonder how EA and LEGO Interactive managed to mess it up. And boy, they really messed it up. Instead of creating an original story, the plot takes parts from the movie Bionicle Mask of Light, making it a movie tie-in game. As if things couldn't get any worse, the graphics are appalling, and the gameplay is extremely lackluster. In a sense, you're playing a rough prototype of what could have been a more promising Bionicle game.
You have saved our Koro, and we thank you. Alas, the sworn leader has escaped, fleeing down the mountain.
Number 7, 007 Racing.
You're doing fine, just keep up the pace.
As much as we'd love to play a James Bond game where we can drive Bond's most kick-ass cars, why did we need a racing game? Thankfully, we're not talking about traditional racing. This is more in line with the Spy Hunter series, only the game is utterly boring and the graphics are unimpressive. You're basically being led around by the hand, collecting power-ups, and then waiting to be told when to use them. Considering this game came out 3 years after Rare released GoldenEye, this felt like a massive step back. Number 6, The Simpsons Skateboarding.
Late kickflip. Late kickflip.
I'm the greatest of all time.
Much like any other franchise that's been around for too long, The Simpsons has seen its fair share of terrible games. In an attempt to cash in on the success of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games, EA brought us the obviously rushed Simpsons Skateboarding. In addition to the abysmal controls, the game is littered with bugs and glitches, making it almost impossible to pull off any tricks. Had it succeeded in providing a quality experience, fans may not have minded that it was a Tony Hawk ripoff. Sadly, that's not the case. The Simpsons Skateboarding fell flat on its face and ran home.
Mother would be proud. Nice board slide.
Number 5, The Simpsons Wrestling. You didn't think skateboarding was their only cash-in attempt, did ya? The only difference here is that EA would only publish the European version, while Activision handled the North American release. As you might expect, the graphics are ugly and the game does little to provide a decent challenge. The most damning flaw of all is the extremely broken gameplay. Fights with certain characters feel unfair in how they can spam certain attacks or deal an unreasonable amount of damage. If fighting the other playable characters wasn't enough to make us quit, the match against Mr. Burns and Smithers did. Number 4. Catwoman. Only a movie as terrible as Catwoman could have an equally terrible tie-in game. In just about everything that other superhero games succeed in, Catwoman manages to flub in the worst ways possible. Coupled with the fatiguing story, combat proves to be the biggest burden, with the frustrating camera and unnecessarily basic control scheme. Because of this, you may find yourself repeating sections over and over, all because of how inaccurate inputs can get. Maybe someday Selena Kyle will get a fantastic game she truly deserves. Until then, we're stuck with EA's lousy package.
Guess I've cleared myself as a murder suspect.
You're still wanted for burglary.
I'll return the jewels. So, think you can stop chasing after me now?
Number 3. Boogie. If you're looking for a jamming rhythm game to play with your friends, you might want to look elsewhere, because Boogie will only disappoint. Granted, it has a solid selection of songs, despite all of them being covers, but that's all the game has going for itself. Boogie fails in providing an exciting experience due to its overly simplistic controls. The game will tell you to follow the beat of the song with its out-of-sync metronome, but you'll quickly figure out that flailing the remote around will satisfy the game anyways. This destroys any challenge Boogie has left in it, turning the game into an overpriced karaoke CD. We'll gladly take our dance party elsewhere. Number 2. Dungeon Keeper Mobile. It's notorious for being one of EA's greediest titles, next to a certain sci-fi franchise. Dungeon Keeper Mobile took the name of a legendary series and dragged it through toxic sludge to transform it into a mobile game built entirely around monetization. As you build your dungeon, the game will try its hardest in tempting you to spend money by enforcing ridiculous wait times. You're telling me I have to wait at least an entire day just to build a square of a hallway? There are much better mobile games to use our data on, and this will never be one of them. Before we get to the worst of EA's library, here are a few dishonorable mentions.
The nose tower is impossibly secure, but you will have a clear shot from the neighboring construction site. Don't miss.
A friend of mine went to Beau Baton with her.
Number 1. Shaq Fu. This game is about as messy as Shaq's free throws. In all seriousness, Shaq Fu has proven to be the worst in EA's library of duds for a number of reasons. The game does zero to engage the player in the action, reducing fights to nothing more than lifeless button mashing. Speaking of which, the game doesn't go deeper into movesets, so don't expect to see much outside of punching and kicking. Shaq Fu quickly overstays its welcome with its dumbed-down controls and bland representation. Aside from being a game starring Shaquille O'Neal, is there any reason for Shaq Fu's existence? Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.